Myself, Dr. K. Viswanath, Allamraju, Department of Mechanical Engineering, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Dundigal, Hyderabad. Today I am going to discuss about introduction of material science. What is the importance of material science? Why should we study material science? I want to discuss with you. I want to show you certain things such a way that we can understand the importance of material science. Here, this is related to the electrical engineering. Yes, this is the transportation lines. Wherever electricity here, there is a transformers, poles are there. This is completely made up of materials, including wires and each and every part of this transformer pole. This is electricity pole. And here another figure is the civil concrete structure. The building, it is made up of completely materials. It can combination of cement plus iron, different things, but it is made up of materials. And here the bombing shells are also made up of different various materials, including aircrafts. So here we can see it. Wherever here laptop is here, the computer components. The computer components are also made up of various materials. So in order to understand materials, the importance of materials plays very, very important role in our day-to-day life. Now here, the aircraft component, here we can understand here, there's a fighter aircrafts which are made up of different materials. We may call it as some, which is combination of 30% is made up of, these fighter aircrafts are made of composite materials, and various composites may be there. And including here cell phones also made up of different materials. Now, if we consider the locomotive engines, the locomotives are made of different metals, including this the steam engine. Different engines are this electric train. These are all made up of various materials. So coming to the gas manufacturing and gas fabrication and any metal components are all made of some materials. So without material science, we cannot run the society and we cannot exist it. Otherwise, we'll become in previous ages. So the importance of materials, we may believe it or not, without these materials, we would not have automobiles. We don't have any machines. We don't have any aircrafts. We would not have electricity. We would not have laptops. We would not have any electronic gadgets, computer gadgets, including food, refrigerators, televisions, etc. So materials plays very, very important. So what materials includes? What is the process in this material science? Let us see what is the material science. The material science is nothing but it is a science, the branch of the science deals with the properties of the materials, the structure of the materials, the internal structure of the materials. So completely this material science subject deals with, it is not related to only Department of Mechanical Engineering or Department of Metallurgical Science or Material Science. It is completely Department of Multi, it is for everybody and everyone. So here, what is the definition of material science? As I told you before, branch of science focuses on materials. But what is that materials are about? The relationship between whenever the body is exposed to certain stimulus, external stimulus, that body gives some responses. So here, when the material is subjected to certain load, there will be certain responses are there. Those responses are known as properties of materials. Here, when the body is, if we consider the metallic body, if the metallic body or any beam is subjected to certain load, there will be deformation, there will be bending stress, there will be shearing stress, etc. These bending stress and responses are called as properties of that particular material. So who is a material scientist? The material scientist is the person who gives or who optimizes or who increases the properties of certain materials. That person is known as a material scientist. by using various materials. So here, in order to understand this material science, we have to know certain definitions such as structure. What is the meaning of this structure? Structure is nothing but internality. It is in briefly, it is known as the structure of a material usually relates to the arrangement of internal components. What are the internal components are? It may be atoms. If you consider the atoms, if you go deep into the atoms, there will be proton, electron, neutrons. And the bond, the attraction between them. If you consider atoms, the atoms attraction between them, the atomic intermetallic bonds. So these are all related to the structure, comes under the topic of the structure. So unless and until we understand the properties of the structure, unless and until we understand the properties of certain object, we cannot reach the objectives of particular material. So here, there are structural elements may be classified based on the size, and this regard there are several levels are there. Subatomic structure. What is a subatomic structure? It involves electrons within the individual atoms. It involves electrons within the individual atoms, their energies and interactions with the nuclei. Where is atomic structure? This atomic structure is related to the organization of the atoms to yield molecular crystals, this atomic structure. What is nanostructure? The degree, the scale is at nano level and deals with aggregates of the atoms that forms the particles or nanoparticles. In nanostructure, the particles are known as nanoparticles that have nanoscale dimensions, that is less than 100 nanometers. Now, what is microstructure and macrostructure? This microstructure is micro level scale, that is the scale between 100 nanometers to several millimeters. That structure, that is what are the things related to this microstructure is that are subject to direct observation. Using how can we study this structures with the help of scanning electron microscope and TEM, etc. By using the scanning electron microscopes and TEM, what and X-ray diffraction. By using various these things, what we are going to do it? We are going to study microstructure of materials. Now, what is macrostructure? The macrostructure, with it can be seen by naked eye. It can be viewed by naked eye. The scale ranges from millimeters to some meters. So it is a macrostructure. So when we are dealing with the materials, when we are studying material science, we will study the materials at different scales such as microstructure level, macrostructural level and nanostructural level. So what we will study in that, there are 4 disciplines related to the material science. Let us, before going to study some certain things, what is the property of a robot? This property is nothing but, as we have discussed before, when the body or while in services, all materials are exposed to certain external stimuli that provokes certain responses in that material. Those responses we are calling as properties. Now, if we consider it, suppose a specimen is subject to certain forces, experiences what? The external stimuli is force. But what is the response? It is a deformation. And certain object is exposed to some light. What is the optical components? What is that? It reflects light, deflection. The surface reflects, metal surface reflects light. That is the response. That is the property of the optical material, optics. So, in overall view, how can we define as property? A property is a material trait in terms of the kind and magnitude of response to a specific imposed stimulus. This specific imposed stimulus is called external stimuli and response is called certain magnitude. Whenever we are telling about certain responses, 2 things should be there. One is quality and the one is quantity. We have to quantify it, that responses. In terms of how can we quantify? Suppose it is the response is the deformation. The deformation is quantified in terms of millimeter. Suppose the response is the stiffness. The response is quantified. The stiffness is quantified by Newton meter. If there is certain responses of such as failure is there, that is it comes off due to certain load, due to tensile strength is the response. What is the tensile strength? Tensile failure, that is shear stress and shear strain, modulus of elasticity. These are all responses of a material when it is subject to external stimulus. What is the stimuli here? The load. Different types of loads which we have studied before. There are different various types. What is normal load? Another one is shear load. Or in the case of beams, it is simply point concentrated load, uniformly distribution load, and uniformly varying loads. When the beam or when the structure is subjected, when the material is subject to various types of loads, it gives various responses. Suppose if the material is under operation, under rotating condition, certain responses means when the body is under operation or when under rotating condition, it is having certain natural frequency. It gives vibrations to the structure. If you consider the lathe machine, and the lathe machine is under operation or under operating condition, it gives a certain vibrations. Those vibrations will be transmitted to the foundation. Then, if the cutting force, external force is related to when it coincides with the natural frequency of the lathe machine, it gives resonance. Very wide vibrations, wide amplitudes will be taken place. So, in order to minimize those resonances phenomenon, in order to avoid resonance vibrations, then what we have to do? We have to operate the machine either above natural frequency or below the natural frequencies. So how can we calculate? Those are the things. These natural frequencies can be calculated with the help of model analysis. Now here, why I am going to tell you, these are the responses for particular load, for particular speed of the machine. What is the response? The response, output response is the vibration. What is the stimuli? What is the external stimuli? You are operating, increasing the speed or either increasing or decreasing the speed. So this is the external stimulus. So thus we can understand that is the property concept. Suppose here we can understand the various properties of materials. Now here, what virtually all materials are, all important properties of the materials of solid materials may be grouped into how many? 6 categories. These properties are, what are the 6 categories of properties are? Number 1, mechanical properties. Number 2, electrical. Number 3, thermal properties. 4, magnetic. 5, optical. And finally 6 is deteriorative. This deteriorative is properties nothing but corrosion. Okay, when body is when the material is exposed to certain environment, corrosion takes place. That is the deteriorative properties. Now, from these 6 categories of properties, we can study what is mechanical. In mechanical properties, what is external stimulus, what is the response. Now, in the case of mechanical properties, the external stimuli is a load or force, applied load or force. What is the response or properties? The response is strength or stiffness, elastic modulus or stiffness, and resistance to fracture. These are the responses in the case of mechanical properties. Coming to electrical properties, in the case of electrical properties, the external stimulus is electric field, applied electric field. Then what is the response? The response is that properties, electrical conductivity and dielectric constant. This is the response. Then these responses are called as properties. What is the external stimuli? That is applied electric field is the stimuli here. Now, whereas in case of thermal properties, the thermal properties, the temperature is the external stimuli or temperature gradients. But the behavior, thermal behavior, what is that? The external response is thermal expansion and heat capacity. They are the properties. Now, coming to magnetic properties. In the case of magnetic properties, external stimulus is the magnetic field. But the properties are magnetic susceptibility and magnetization is the response. Whereas in the case of optical properties, what is it optical properties? In the case of external stimulus, the stimulus is, for optical properties, is the electromagnetic or light radiation. But the properties are refraction and reflectivity. Index of refraction and reflectivity are the properties. Now, finally, deteriorative characteristics, properties are what is that? The chemical reactivity is the external stimuli, that means exposure to different environments. There's this chemical environments or pollution environment. Then what will happen? The corrosion resistance. The resistance of corrosion is the property of the material. Thus, we can understand the introduction of material science and what is the importance of material science we have studied. Thank you.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.